could feel beauty rising.
Hi, my name is Sue Skasky with Vermont Volunteer Services for Animals Humane Society, and welcome to our show For the Animals. Today we have a returning guest and friend, Julie Ireland from Heartland. Julie was here a few months ago and we did a show about her alpacas. Maybe it was a year ago now.
It was cold.
It was cold, you're right. Okay, so it was a while ago. But Julie is a longtime animal advocate and a wonderful all-around person. She's got an exciting story to tell, and she brought her buddy Otis, and Otis is a
Landseer, Newfoundland.
okay, and I don't know if you can see Otis right now, but he is so warm. He's great. Welcome, and thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me again.
Okay, so the story, you just went through quite an ordeal.
I did.
Tell me about it.
Well, not with this dog,
Right.
did I? I took in a foster dog about 6 weeks ago, and who had been in a shelter for quite a while and living outside for many, many years prior to that, so never really had a home. And so I took him in. It was during the first part of December, and first night went fabulously. He acted as though he had lived in a house forever, and was responsive and comfortable and ate out of my hand, which supposedly he had never ever done in his 6 years.
He was 6 years old.
So he's 7 actually, excuse
Okay.
me, but in the 6 years prior to going to the shelter. And so on day 2, I took him out for a walk in the fenced-in paddock area and on the leash, and I just wanted to make sure I had it secure. I double-checked it, and I unclicked it to make sure it was tightly clasped, and that the sound of that click,
I was just going to say that sound of the click. They
he
know.
he bolted and off into the woods. So
Your heart must have just dropped.
I was nauseous. And it was very, very cold, of course.
Yeah.
And I ran through the woods for probably 3 hours. And he's not a dog who knows to come to you,
Right.
though he will in the house. You know, he knows all of the commands, but he's never had to come to somebody outside.
Now, do you know his history? Where did he come from before he ended up in the shelter? Do you have any idea?
I do. I do.
Was it a good situation, or?
Well, it was, yes. I mean, it was probably better not to go into that part of the story right now, but he was loved and cared for, but it wasn't the kind of environment that you or I would give our dogs.
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
He basically lived outside.
Oh,
So
you know, that's no life. That
it's
is
not.
no life
It's
for an
not a
animal.
life. And so that first night when he was in my house, I had him on a plushed-out bed, and he had roasted chicken, and
Probably thought he made it to heaven.
he was very, very comfortable. So day 2, he's gone. Saw him out on the road that night. Saw him blasting up the driveway, and while I was letting my collie out, and I saw this flash of big dog going by. And so the first 2 weeks were just almost debilitating emotionally, because I didn't see him. The neighbors spotted him several times, and we finally learned that he had not actually left the hood. So
He knew where he had it good.
well, and then and of course the entire time I was placing food outside in the same place, and then I started grilling, thinking that smell would lure him even more.
It's a smart idea.
And,
did it seem to work?
Well, he didn't. I know that he didn't leave the immediate. I mean, you know where the farm is. It's on a relatively busy road, but all the property. I mean, the house is set very far back, and the place where I was feeding him was even further up the hill in an old doghouse, which was plushed out, and he wanted nothing to do with that. So he was coming 3 times a day, 4 times a day, and I was getting up at all hours, every 3 hours. heating food, taking him ribs, meatloaf, chicken livers. He was living large.
Was he eating in the same location all the time?
He was stockpiling his bowls. I usually use stainless steel bowls for my animals, but obviously in the winter, can't do that. So I was just using Tupperware. And I realized, because the bowls would be gone every morning, so I realized that he was taking them and probably not eating where they were placed, where I had placed them. So I found under this thicket of trees, he had a yard sale going.
No kidding.
Socks, because I was putting my socks out there. And
did you hear on YouTube a few months ago about the cat in Florida that would go around the neighborhood stealing everything? And they caught him on the overnight camera taking bathing suits off.
Yes.
So what type of dog is he?
He's part Doberman, part Collie, and part Lab. Extraordinary markings. The color of a deer almost, and almost marked like a deer. White socks, white chest, a 6-inch white pinstripe going up his forehead, big nose. It's pink on the top, long tail, about like that with a white tip.
Wow.
He's stunning.
Long hair or short hair?
He's very short-haired.
Oh, so you must have really been doubly
And
panicked.
I was just a wreck. He was quite stocky when he left, and yet he was probably about 90 when he left. And when I got him last week, he was 66.4.
Oh, Julie. Well, wasn't he eating the food he was
He's
stockpiling?
76 today, a week later. So
Awesome.
he's getting well fed at Mama's.
So tell me about how did you finally come to catch him?
Well, so the feeding went on, and I saw him through binoculars from my office window, which I was glued to.
Yeah.
I did catch glimpses of him, and a couple of times in the night I did hear his dog tags when I went up with hot food. So anyway, I knew he was there and had the trap out that you kindly lent.
And you know what, I just want to make a point too. If anybody needs to borrow a dog trap, I think we might have one of the only ones in the state. You're welcome to borrow it. It's about 6
It's
feet.
5.5 feet long.
5.5 feet long.
It's about 2.5 feet high.
Uh-huh.
And it works. I tested it, and I also went up one night to put a hot bone in, and I locked myself into it while wearing leopard print pajamas.
How did you get out?
I understood the mechanism of it because I had tested it so many times, but we ended up not setting it, just leaving it open for him with marrow bones in the back, tied to the back, not
Right.
loose. You know, they have to work for something once they're in there to trigger the plate. But anyway, Leslie Brecker, whom I own the alpaca business with, was going in and working on this dog for 3 months. He was her internship because she was becoming certified as an animal massage therapist. So that's how I came to know him. And anyway, she saw a show on Animal Planet. Am I allowed to say that?
Sure.
About pit bulls, and there was an elusive pit bull that was loose in between two very, very busy highways.
Oh.
So they built a catch pen and had food, and they saw the dog running in this area frequently. And so they set up this catch pen.
Out of, they constructed something out of wire?
They
or
used chain link. The panels, the movable, like dog kennel panels.
Okay.
That's what I have out back. And but we used 7-foot deer fencing, that pliable black vinyl stuff, and zip tied it to all the trees. It was about maybe 60 feet long. No longer than that, about 75 feet long, about 25 feet wide, and it had a gate on the end where he was always making his descent to come get the food. The doghouse was about halfway in between the beginning and end of this fence. The house end of the fence, of course, was not open. So in the doghouse, I had planted a baby monitor.
Oh.
I had been in there for a few days, so I knew he was coming, and I'd hear him rooting around. And but the plan for the night it was completed, which was just last Wednesday, it started that morning, done at 5, and got him at 11 o'clock that night.
So how many people
But
did it take to actually
just-
bring the fencing in? Was this
Just
a
the
whole?
well, it's pliable. You unroll it, it weighs nothing. So we just did it, the two of us, Leslie and I, constructed it together.
Oh, okay.
And she and a gentleman installed the gates. So we tied a 300-foot rope to the gate and had it just slightly propped onto a little rock so that it stayed open but would easily close once yanked. We ran through it several times. It even with all that footage, it closed in about 1.5 seconds.
So how long was the rope that you
300 feet. So she was on the end of it. Baby monitors in the doghouse. Meatloaf is in. I have a big terracotta roasting, bowl for an entire chicken. He could not carry that with his mouth. And I put that inside a black metal roasting pan, the kind you use for your turkey.
Right. Well,
and so to add some extra noise, and I knew his dog tags would be hitting that.
You thought of everything.
That was at the 11th hour. I was filling the plastic bowl, and I thought, wait a minute. So anyway, food's planted, and Leslie was at the end of the rope and wrapped in a sleeping bag, facing the window. I'm in the dark. The plan was the baby monitor right here in the windowsill. I would flash the flashlight when I was absolutely certain that he was there, and I knew there would be no question because that baby monitor picked up the train way downtown in Windsor. So I just want to insert this: that alpacas make a warning call. Just one out of the herd will make a warning call if they hear an imposter, or even if they see a little squirrel. It's almost a cheetah type sound.
Uh-huh.
And I'd heard them doing it over the weeks. Well, he was coming down for his dinner. This was about 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
And one of the female alpacas did her warning call. So that's screeching into the baby monitor, the dog tags, the slurping of the meatloaf.
Your heart must have been pounding.
I flashed the flashlight. I ran outside, no coat, no gloves. It's about 5 degrees, and I knew that he just had to get in that night. It was just,
Yeah.
There was another round of sub-zero weather coming in, and anyway, I ran out. Leslie, had pulled the gate the second I flashed the flashlight, and I ran out and held the rope so she could run to the top and, make sure the gates were tied shut. I mean, I had it pulled shut, but, and I heard his tags, and okay, I didn't want to cry. But she said, I got him. And yeah, so, and he went right to her, completely unafraid, just melted right in, and
Oh, Julie.
and so got him inside, and I couldn't believe after 34 days I was seeing him.
Yeah.
And of course, she was elated, as she had formed quite an attachment to this dog over the 3 months of working on him, which, by the way, transformed him immensely. Massaging him and working with him.
I have a friend that does Reiki, Kelly McDermott.
Oh, you had mentioned her,
Kelly
yeah.
will go into different shelters and do Reiki with the animals, and she's came over our house and worked with 3 cats that we had taken in. I can't remember where they came from, but it was not a good situation. But these cats, and if you watch the video, she's sitting there and doing the Reiki, and the cats, who would always cower, started to come up very slowly and look at her, and then they just went into the little curl position.
That's the
hands-on.
trusting position.
Yeah. So, okay, so you brought the dog in. I'm trying to picture. Were you afraid at any point that the dog was going to charge the fencing and run through it?
There was no way to get out. There was just the one gate up top, which I, with all my weight, was I was just hanging on it basically, because it was at the end of a decline. It was uphill.
Okay.
The fence was built on an incline rather. So so I was holding the rope. Leslie had it fastened, and I had to cut the end my end. I just got scissors and cut it
Yeah.
open. They walked out and got him in the house. I had a nice bed all ready for him, covered him with a fleece blanket, and gave him warm water, gave him more meatloaf. Well, he didn't get to finish his dinner, so he had that. And
When he was trapped immediately, did he try to escape, or
not
did
at all.
he
just
reconciled?
completely acquiesced to her. Just came right to her, and she just put the leash on, and
what a
he was
wonderful
ready.
story.
And while we were, just as we were actually finishing the fence at about 4:30 that afternoon, he made an appearance at the top of the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And I also kept a bowl of hot water up there for him. He had two bars.
Yeah.
And so he that told me that he was was ready.
Yeah.
And the poor thing, he had some frozen ticks on him, and he was covered with quills, porcupine quills.
Oh dear.
And
The poor boy.
but he went into the vet the next day and had an overhaul and had them removed. And
Well, I know that too you tried to set up a station for him with a bed where he could go in, and he wanted no part of it.
he did not go into the doghouse, and further up the hill where he was stockpiling. I had another bed for him, but I have no idea where he was sleeping. I have no idea, but
If only we could understand what they could say.
yeah,
Wow. So how does he get along with Otis?
fine. It's really, from start to finish, the whole story is miraculous. It really is.
But-
he loves cats, which is good. At,
Yeah,
at
I know.
my house.
Which is very good. Julie has, they're all beautiful. They're all huge, long-haired. How many? 7? 7 beautiful cats. Julie's home is beautiful inside.
Thank you.
Um,
And Gladys, my collie, is wonderful. I'm not really letting them interact right now because, I mean, they've met and it's been fine, but because he was outside, and I want to make sure that, you know,
Yeah.
it gets all clear. He's on antibiotics, you know, just to ensure that there's nothing going on in there.
How was he coming into the house? I mean, transitioning to living into a house. I know he'd been at the shelter for 2 years, you said?
He high-fived me.
Did he?
He was there for 1 year. He came
year.
in and just went right to the bed and laid down, and I laid there until 3 in the morning with him on the floor on his bed, and he snored, and he was just truly, truly grateful. You
That's-
could just tell.
So what have you taken away from this? What can we share with people?
First thing I want to say is that prayer works.
Mm-hmm.
I was a very prayed over dog.
I'm sure a lot of people.
A lot of people
on your
praying for
email
him.
list.
Yes, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, certainly to never, ever, ever give up or think that you're not going to find the dog. You have to wake up every morning and think, today is the day.
Yeah, that's
So-
great. Well, you went through so many steps. He's very fortunate. Tell me about Otis. He's not on me like he was before. He's so warm.
Otis, I've always called Otis the light of my life. I've had him for 6 years, and he's just an incredibly soulful dog, very protective. I'm his whole world.
Well, when he came into the studio, we have a couple people here today with us. He just walks right up and right in the eyes.
Yeah,
Otis, can you, sweetie pie?
he cares about people.
This
really
way.
does.
Look this way.
Odie. And yeah,
Aw.
he's just he's also an absolute clown. He's very funny. He does really clownish, funny things.
You were telling me before we started to record what he does.
About bringing presents.
Yes.
Yes, that is a Newfie trait, but he really does it. He brings me. He has 2 toy boxes, and I hear him rummaging around, and they're very carefully selecting just the right one.
Uh-huh.
And it's different almost every morning, but he'll bring it to the side of the bed and just gently lay it there. And when I come home, he rummages through it, and I gotta make this perfect. And he'll bring me something at the door.
He's just so gentle.
They call them gentle giants.
Yep. And you were saying that he's the most photographed dog. And one thing I don't know if anybody knows, well, you should all know, Julie is a phenomenal, and I don't mean just phenomenal. You are an amazing photographer.
Thank you.
The photographs you take, particularly, I know you do weddings, but the photographs of animals that you do, that you have in your house, they're in motion. They're unique shots. And I remember you telling me that when you go to a client's home, you spend hours on the floor just getting to know the animal so that you can take the perfect pictures of the animal. Talk about those.
Well, I like to do what I call a day in the life shoot, and I like the owners to be a part of it. You know, I like to document what they do with their dog, what their dog does with them, and follow them around in barns or inside, outside, just do the routine.
Are there only dogs, or do you do other animals as well?
I've never done fish, but I've done just about everything else.
Really?
Cats, dogs, horses, alpacas, of course.
Yeah.
Bunnies, pigs. I love pigs.
Oh, I know. They're comical.
They are goats.
What, if people wanted to look at the photographs that you do, how would they go to your website?
JulieIreland.com.
Okay. That's great.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for everything and for sharing the story. You know, when you lose an animal, luckily for you, and by the way, we haven't even said his name.
Gray Bear.
Gray Bear stayed right there at your home. But when people do lose an animal, it's important to get that word out right away. Don't wait. Call your shelters, call the veterinarians, post it in the newspaper. Another thing I find that's really helpful, kids in school know everything that goes on in the neighborhood.
Yep.
Go to the schools, put flyers out, do everything you possibly can, the radio. Newspaper people are awesome because they're driving around in the early dawn and they know what's going on around town. But don't give up. There is, you know, if the animal's out there, there's still a chance, and there's a good chance you're going to get them back.
Well, I put posters up everywhere. I give a picture to the FedEx guy. You know,
Yeah.
FedEx and UPS go
Sure.
into places we don't even know about. And I went to all of the neighbors personally to the door and showed them a picture and, you know, established a relationship. And I have amazing people living within
Yes.
4 or 5 doors of me
good way
that
to
I
meet
know.
your neighbors.
Yes, and all of them called daily to check in, and I let them all know, of course, when he was
Sure.
found.
I know, I'm getting that email, it's like, oh, thank God, Julie.
Yes, I'm just so grateful, and I thank God for bringing him back. And again, I would just say to people, do not ever give up hope.
That's right.
But you need to wake up every morning and have that hope that, you know, this could be the day.
That expectation and know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing this story.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for watching our show For the Animals, and please join us again next week.
At dusk, there came a turning. There was a moment when all was known. You could feel beauty rising on the breeze, the shapes, the stone. And I would ride upon the breeze that shapes the stone, across the sky and beyond, to that place where all is known. When I could fly, when I could fly down that road.